the ultimate example of, I guess, like this whole decline, I think, is Terminator. Which, because in my head, and like, feel free to clickety-clack and prove me wrong, there's 3 timelines, as far as I'm concerned, to the Terminator universe. All right, now hear me out. There's the expanded one that they did without what was it, Cameron, right?
Right.
So you've got Terminator 1 and 2, and you've got like John Connor's some like bum, and like the apocalypse still happens, and then like John Connor is Christian Bale, and then like John Connor is the robots, and like that shit was just stupid. And then you've got like the Cameron comes back, and it's like John Connor is nobody, and we killed him in the first like 20 seconds. Go fuck yourself.
Right.
Who cares about the actual continuity of the story? Nope. But we've changed the course of history. And then there's my personal timeline.
The Latino ICE agent is just the icing on the cake, though.
I didn't see it. I'm not going to see it. I don't care.
Just...
I'm not watching it. I refuse. There's my timeline, all right? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's a glaring hole here, right? So, like, John Connor is the leader of the Resistance in the future, yeah? Right. We can confirm that from, like, the beginning of the series. So John Connor, who is the son of Sarah and Kyle Reese, back here, is the leader of the Resistance. But Kyle Reese is only here because John sent him back to protect his mom from a robot that got sent back from this timeline as well, correct?
Right.
So John Connor exists as a Resistance fighter because of his own action, because of the action of robots, right?
Right.
So technically, if Skynet wanted to win, their best course of action was to never send back a Terminator to kill Sarah Connor, because then John Connor doesn't send back Kyle Reese. Kyle Reese doesn't fuck Sarah Connor. John Connor is not born, and there's no leader of the fucking Resistance.
Right. They...
Unless, and this is how I imagine it, somewhere in that timeline, there's a story we didn't get, where John Connor is running into the actual, like, mainframe hub of Skynet, and it's, like, a fucking sentient, like, Tron face robot, and he's got, like, a suicide vest on. And as he runs in, he just fucking hits the buttons, and Skynet has, like, a hold-up, and, like, calculates, and is like, shit, I just lost. I'm sending a robot back to kill, like, this man's fucking mom.
Right.
And, like... So, somehow there's this weird feedback loop of, like, every time Skynet loses to John Connor, they create John Connor.
Right. They every time Skynet
I want
loses...
that movie.
Every time Skynet loses, they send a T-800 to murder Sarah Connor, and then Kyle Reese... No, then Sarah Connor has to raw dog it with the time traveler during the height of the AIDS crisis to create the leader of the Resistance.
Yes.
And in the process of this happening, a second robot is sent out, and he is trouble, all right? And then to take care of this trouble... Someone in the back office in the fucking Resistance, all right,
like,
decided...
We reprogram robot, we send it back.
And so the thing that was caught, and I love how, just like this in Terminator 2, and it was like the suspect in the killing of 24 police officers, and they show the old footage of one, and it's him in black and white right after he goes, I'll be back, and it's like, you're kind of not wrong, but like, now, alright, this kind of plays, this ties, this reminds you, remember that first movie? Yeah, it happened.
Which like, 2 also has the, like, this is bullshit moment of, like, the rest of the other, I don't count them as canon films, of, like, it was the tech that was sent back, was it not? That was what made Skynet even possible? Because the time-traveling tech back in time is what makes them fucking be like, oh shit, we can use this, and they advance upon it, and then they accidentally Skynet. So Skynet accidentally is itself into existence, and then accidentally is itself out of existence. Via time travel.
There is an endless chain of suicide vest John Connors, like, milliseconds away. And then Skynet decides, what is the cheapest, quickest, most effective thing we could send out right now that could stop this from happening? And then a T-800 is sent out into the fucking past to murder Sarah Connor.
So, like, the decline of movies, because you just let these fucking morons be like, John Connor's a bum, and the apocalypse still happens. And it's like, well, that defeats the purpose of 2. John Connor gets gunned down by another robot. Well, that defeats the purpose of number 2. At least with my story, we get like, no, we see the future storyline, and we watch the bomb vest John Connor, and we learn how this all got started in the first place. And it's just an infinite time loop, but no matter what it ends with, like, bomb vest John Connor wins, the robot is technically defeated, and it just gets stuck in a permanent time loop trying not to die.
It's,
where it fails.
It.
I mean, like, come on now. I'm not even that creative.
And you know but what makes even if you were to separate it from the whole, which in a way you must, because listen, like Die Hard, 5 was kind of like this is just a weird father and son bonding moment through murdering Russians because John Connor's son is a spook. I was willing to deal with 4, all right, but it is sad that the Die Hard trilogy is no longer the best trilogy of all time. But so I.
What do you think is the best trilogy of all time?
I don't think there is one.
I mean, you could still call it the Die Hard trilogy, just like pretend 4 didn't happen.
But it was the greatest trilogy of all time for a while.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I could easily say that my version of Terminator is the greatest trilogy of all time that I'll never see.
But so because everything that happened after 2 was just really sad. Really, all right. So when we talk of the decline, like that is much more accurate because it was these pre-existing beloved franchises before, like being woke scolded into getting fired for voicing your opinion that it's not good.
Yeah.
Like from Terminator 3, like what the fuck happened with Terminator 3? So if you take Terminator 1, you take Terminator 2. Terminator 2 took place in what, 1994?
I don't remember the years.
But the point is, it was in the 90s, and it wasn't an 80s action movie. It was just storytelling 101. You could have zero frame of reference to the first Terminator and watch Terminator 2, and you know what? Like, there's no egghead pointing you to a flowchart to explain what is happening. Hell, in Back to the Future, flux capacitor, 88 miles an hour, that's it. That's all you needed. That's it. That's all you needed.
The technology exists, it's fine.
So
don't worry about it.
So much like even in Terminator 2, which is building upon the myth of a murder machine sent into the past by a possibly defeated sentient AI, not knowing how to deal with the threat of imminent destruction, so in a haphazard Hail Mary, like, try to keep its existence by fucking with the fabric of time and space to keep it all together. Yeah. A T-800 gets sent to kill Sarah Connor, who raw dogs it with a time traveler meant to stop the T-800 during the height of the AIDS crisis, and then John Connor happens, and then that John Connor puts on a fucking suicide vest, like fucking 33 years later, and
infinite loop.
And that's it. That's it. And you see, nothing that has been made in the past, 15, 20 years can provide a lack of need to have it be dissected and made political. That inherently is going against movie making 101.
Or just butting heads. You know what I mean? Like, because like most movies now, like I said, either get dissected or they cause like weird fan base waves of like clashing opinions. It's not just like movie and everyone's like, yeah, movie. You know, like, fuck yeah.
And but
I mean,
but everything has been. So,
I have a few, but you know.
So who knows? Maybe. I don't want to say that there is a pendulum swinging the other way in terms of the quality of movies being made, but, you know, what's next? Like, one thing that I'm scared to death of seeing is, like, in fact, like, all right, for the past maybe, like...
I think the next step is everyone's going to try and do the connected universe, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's going to try and build a multi-series franchise.
Out the gate?
Not out the gate. We saw what happened with DC. It didn't work. But like, I think that's a thing that companies are going to try and do.
Hey,
they're going to try and mimic that.
Between me, you, and the cameraman and the NSA desk jockey, like, you know, watching for his boss, who's got to give like some sort of like flow chart as to what the threat matrix is, like between us three. And I'm going to be disappointed if it's not cameraman. All right. So, and tell Jenkins in accounting I sent regards. I know who you are, Phil. So, Terminator 2 is a perfect example of storytelling, movie making 101, whatever you want to call it. But there are like setups and payoffs, memorable characters. Try not to waste time with exposition. And it isn't a day in the life of either, all right? The point is, perhaps movie making 101 is not quite a casualty of the day and age that we live in, but maybe it's because... sort of like how, like, why do they call it common sense if it's so rare? You know? Like, now movie making 101 is going to seem like some weird, like, bizarre accident that someone stumbled upon because it's like, oh, well, he set something up, and then it paid off later in the movie. Like, what? Just when did this ever happen?
It's a symptom of the world we live in being like, well, you gotta make sure you fit in 20 things that aren't the movie's like central points and setups.
And you
know
can
what I mean?
argue if it's like consensus-driven thinking because it was made together in a studio
Yeah.
as opposed to someone's artistic vision.
Of course,
but
but that's
like,
happening a lot. So I think that plays into it too. We're
But-
seeing like you have to have this in the movie. It's like that's not part of the movie. Find room for X. I also have like Y and Z. You got to put them in there, figure it out, make it happen, and put it in the movie
there's, I mean,
or the video game or the show or the like. Put it in there. You don't get decisions unless you own your own studio.
that's true. That's true. I mean, like for what it's listen, say what you will about Captain Feet. All right. Quentin Tarantino is one of the last directors who I suppose has enough resources and utility at his immediate
Anything
disposal that he could just make his own movie,
Yeah.
just without outside interference, more or less. So take it as you will, folks, because and if you don't like him, there are plenty of other things you could watch, but it probably might not be in a movie theater if and when they open back up, which is probably not going to happen.